By now, I'm used to Tab Hunter, but of course, after all these years, I grew up as Art Galeen. I was born in 1931, July 11th, 1931. My mother's name was Gertrude Galeen. She was from Hamburg, Germany. I always used to say she was a poor man's Marlene Dietrich. She had two children, my older brother, Walt, who was 11 months older than me. My mother and father did not get along at all. He was terribly abusive to her. Once my mother left my father, it was a lot of burden, a lot of stress for a single woman raising two children in those days. She was very strict. One moment she could be very explosive, and the other moment she could be terribly tender and dear.
I'm Vance Bastian, here with my co-host SA Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 33, Entertainment Review. Baz and I will be giving our thoughts and reviews of Tab Hunter Confidential. That's right, we're going to bring our Hollywood heartthrob documentaries to a full circle, and we're going to explore how it relates to queer life, as well as discuss its strengths and flaws. Let's see, you can currently watch this on Prime. If you have a Prime subscription, it's free, otherwise it's pretty cheap to rent. The blurb is the story of matinee idol Tab Hunter from teenage stable boy to closeted Hollywood star of the 1950s. And since I happen to know this is Baz's favorite documentary of all time, I'm going to let him start.
Well, first I'm going to tell you all a story about a little gay boy who was living in sunny San Diego, California. And if you haven't figured it out, it's me. And my mom had a stack of 45 vinyl records. And for the children out there who don't know, 45s were single songs like you buy on iTunes that had, you got two songs for the price of one. So you think y'all are scooping it with your 99-cent or $1.29 iTunes singles? Child, no, you still aren't making it. These were vinyl records that had a A side and a B side. So you got two songs for the price of one. And
out though that one of those sides was a hit and the other side was usually something that the studios were trying to push.
It wasn't even going to make it on the album.
It wasn't going to make it.
Yeah. It was usually a throwaway song. Although sometimes
every once
the B-sides, because the B-sides could be even more famous than the A side that was originally released. It's just sometimes it depended on the disc jockey if they flipped it over and gave it a spin and went, oh, you know what? I can do something with this.
Yep.
So it wasn't always a given. Let's just say that there's enough history there that the B-sides could be a hit as well.
So much so.
But anyways,
there's a vinyl record store in Madison that has existed since the 70s titled The B-Side.
Excellent. I love that. So anyways, my mom had a stack of these and they were on a pedestal with a little cover, and if Google them, children, so you can see what the hell I'm talking about it. But they were all kinds of songs from the 50s and 60s, and somehow I got bequeathed it at some point, or I claimed it at some point, and in the early 70s. And I would listen to all these songs. So I listened to all these songs that my parents had purchased on 45s to play in the house and such. And I started combing through them. And the only one that I would play, well, there were two, but the other one has a completely different story. And it was Aretha Franklin, Respect. And to this day, my aunt can't listen to that song because I played it so damn much. She broke the record in front of me just because, yeah, I was 9.
No.
Yes. She literally pulled it off and snapped it in front of my face. My grandmother was so angry with her. She went out and bought me 4 more.
Epic.
Anyways, I digress. So there was a 45 in that stack that was Tab Hunter's song. It was probably his biggest hit. And it's called Young Love. And I played that thing to death. Now, I'm not saying that gaydar is a thing, but it kind of is. But I somehow knew that I was hearing something that was different. And I really, really, really loved that song. And I will have to say, while watching this documentary, it is a sentimental favorite. It's 5 across the board for me, just because it is one of my all-time favorite documentaries ever produced, ever, ever, ever. And that's a big list because that has like Celluloid Closet and some other majors up there as well. But um, there's something very sentimental about this one that I really loved seeing the full story of what happened to Tab Hunter. His He had numerous relationships throughout the years, and so I really, really love that this story was finally told, that we got to hear all of the behind the scenes, and that Tab was actually part of it. And you have to understand, because of the way the system worked back then, people like Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter really were forced to suppress their lives. You know, it it wasn't an easy life if you were queer. Montgomery Clift is another one that had you know, the same kind of situation. Cary Grant had it was another, you know, so there were these a lot of queer people within the system, as there is in the arts, but they were really forced to keep down their entire lives as much as possible. So Tab Hunter had a relationship with Anthony Perkins. It was one of the biggest relationships of his life. But Tab did participate in this biopic or biography. And so I kind of think of it more as an autobiography, because he does tell his story from his own lips.
He does.
And he talks about what he went through being part of the system, knowing how he was feeling about men, and how he had to navigate that entire situation. And it's probably one of the best internal stories. It's probably one of the best documentaries that I've seen that the subject has participated in, because he is quite open with how things were. You eventually do get to meet the partner that was with him to the end of his days, and their amazingly beautiful home that they lived in California. And it's nice that he had peace of mind and even a small renaissance towards the end of his life in film, due to John Waters using him in a couple of his films. So, you know, Tab, you know, he still was part of the system. He, you know, his partner actually was a producer and I think writer in the industry. And so they were involved in the industry and such. But it's just lovely that one of our own actually found peace in the end and actually had a really good life that they really enjoyed with the person they loved openly. And that's just a lovely, lovely story that was all too uncommon in the Hollywood system of that era.
Yeah.
So Tab Hunter will always have a special place in my heart, because as a young gay boy, hearing him sing, I heard something that I know I identified with. And if you read the lyrics, there's a little bit of something there, but I just really, really, there's something about that song to this day that when I hear it, I'm that same 6, 7, 8 year old boy listening to that 45 over and over again. I just loved that song so much. And there is such a sentimental attachment to Tab Hunter for me that I highly recommend people check it out. It's one of the best documentaries I have ever seen. It is so well put together. The threads in it, the storyline, the way it's weaved, the way you meet all the people that he encountered in his life, that just the progression of his life story is really well done. You know, I hope he was proud of it, because it was a phenomenal documentary, and it's one I watch from time to time just because I like hearing of a good feel good story that came out of the Hollywood system, because there were not many of them out there. Even for straight people, there were not many of them out there. So.
Whereas I first saw that this week during the era of a writer's strike and an actor's strike, and several elements that he talked about just hit home how powerful these studios are in people's lives. When he recorded his first song for Dot Records, Warner Brothers went berserk and claimed that they owned him and they owned his likeness and they owned everything about him. And they started Warner Records so that he could keep singing for their label because they owned him.
Uh-huh.
When he was considered too dangerous of a moneymaker and he wanted to go off on his, he was talking about going off on his own, they dropped him fast. And it sounds like they put the word out through Hollywood that nobody should hire him. And he ended up doing dinner theater for a while until he got an acting movie career back because some of the bad boys in film were starting to do some other things and the studio system wasn't as prevalent as it had been. But yeah, his life had some ups and downs, and all of it was controlled by the power of studio and what the studio
Mm-hmm.
wanted. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got to see this documentary through the lens of what's happening today. And it just showed the root of the production studios, where all of this kind of started, or at least where it gained its
Yep. A
power.
rose by any other name, it's still
Right,
the same fucking rose. And it's
right.
not it's a stinky fucking rose, too.
Less of a rose, more of a hill of Golgotha. And if you know that reference, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Um, That said, it was a beautiful story, and I love the documentaries where the subject is actually part of the making, whether they're just being interviewed, like in Tab's case, or when they're actually producing it, like some of the other ones we've reviewed. It's so much more heartwarming, and it was great to hear from him that his life had gotten so good that when his partner wanted him to act, he was like, "No, that's my past life. I've got this here with you now. This is all I've ever wanted." Can you imagine the power of being able to say that?
Mm-hmm.
It's phenomenal. So
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend this for people. And like I said, if you've been following our documentaries this summer, this sort of closes the trifecta of the um, Hollywood Heartthrobs. My numbers aren't quite fives across the board. Production quality, I did only give a four, but I brought script screenplay up to five because the storytelling is good. It's not only chronological, but it's from the voice of the person who lived it, and it was really well woven. It brought in other elements. It brought in people who knew him. I was a little surprised, but then I thought about it. I was like, oh, Debbie Reynolds, yeah, her voice should have been there. It just caught me off guard. So there were
Mm-hmm.
some really good voices. Warning, IMDb credits Clint Eastwood as like the second star of this. He has like two lines. That's it.
Yeah.
Again, that's
He's
IMDb.
over there talking to the chair.
Yeah, but it's IMDb doing a name grab, so just be warned if you see that.
Yeah.
Sound lighting score, back to a four. It's a documentary. It was what it needed to be. Same with art direction, costuming. I mean, for the most part, it was pictures of events that had happened in the past. So again, what it was supposed to be. But casting, I brought back up to five because they interviewed people from his life. They found the girl that he had like win a date with Tab Hunter back in the late 50s, and she had won it. They found her and talked to her. Other actors he's acted with, as well as people who know him personally. It's really methodical, but also well thought out. So casting five, directing five for the same reason. Queer themes presented. Four, it really kind of only relates to queer life in celebrity dumb, but important nonetheless. So overall rating 4.5. It is one I have already recommended to family. I recommend it to you too.
Yep. I will definitely say that one of the things I think is a good counterpoint to what went on in Tab's life is his relationship with Anthony Perkins. While intense, Anthony Perkins' outcome was very, very troubled and kind of rocky towards the end. He ended up passing away from AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
and it was something that his wife, um, it was just all clouded when he passed and all of the stuff that went down. So it's clearly Anthony Perkins was a very troubled soul in dealing with his own sexuality. And so it there is a counterpoint in the story. So I think it heightens Tab's happy ending
Mm-hmm.
with what Anthony gave up in order to maintain that facade of being straight.
Right.
And so it's a great juxtaposition where you see two men who came up in the system at the same time, who were involved together, and you get to see how they ended in very different ways. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this documentary so much, is because of that juxtaposition. You get to see two different lives that had intersected at one point, and the endings couldn't have been more divergent if they tried. So
True. Very true. All right, folks. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, and tune in Friday for our next author, or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media like today with this review, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts from new episodes. Follow us on YouTube. Baz and Albert have done some reactions to Heartstopper that are really gaining some traction. So if you're just listening to this in audio, please go check out our YouTube channel because...
Subscribe.
It's
free. It's free.
And it costs you nothing to keep us going.
That's what it's free means.
But there's also an emotional cost sometimes to subscribing.
Okay.
But we promise to continue bringing you value.
You get the feel goods by doing it.
Well, and we promise to continue bringing you value in the queer entertainment genre.
There you go.
So tune in next week for your Queer Media Fix.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. What part didn't you understand? The buh or the bye? Bye. Sidebar. Taki, I swear to God, I'm going to skin you alive. Lay down over there. All right. That's sidebar.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. Bum's Rush and Melody, dear.